was a time when I was a kid, before I read Randy's book, that I remember listening to Uri Geller on the radio, and I picked up a little pin and I concentrated on it, and I convinced myself that that pin had bent slightly. Now, am I crazy?
Yes.
Thanks. So what you're saying is we should not be arbitrators of the mentally ill. We have a job to do, and that job is to test claims.
If people believe in the challenge, then the question of whether we're exploiting the mentally ill will always come up. But it's coming up from people who attend the challenge events and believe in what the JREF does. And that seems odd to me, because it doesn't seem like we have that stringent of a guideline.
Yeah. I do want to point out that I am asking Alison these questions, and these are her opinions. So just so you guys know, not that, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you say when it comes to this stuff. So but I just want to point that out ahead of time. I should have done that earlier, all right? And I would have done that earlier, but except for something else. All right, now let's talk about high-profile psychics, all right? Is it true that they never want to take the NBC?
They often talk about taking it. I mean, Sylvia Brown announced that she was going to, but no one ever actually does. And I think that it's in part because we've gained so much publicity. Everyone knows that if they, like Sylvia knows that if we test her, she is in so much trouble. And she makes so much money that there is no reason for her to even try. She's just going to come up empty from that. So I think that the way to bring the challenge to these people is to confront them on their own territory and say that we're willing to work with them, willing to talk about different types of demonstrations where maybe they could just showcase their ability in a way like we're doing tonight, instead of necessarily saying, this is your preliminary test, you have to do it right now. No, we can be somewhat flexible, I think, and if we make it so everyone in the public asks, why won't you take the challenge? If we can make it that publicly accessible to where that's the first question that comes up when someone meets a psychic, then I think we will accomplish really great things, and I hope that everyone will continue to support the JREF and the challenge so we can get to that place.
Yeah, because there's a lot of... Because there's a lot of challenges when you take that proactive stance, when you go out there and you go after them, there's a lot of challenges that come along with that. Do you want to mention those?
Oh yeah, there's the issue of money. We are a very small nonprofit organization, and I know that many of our donors are out here, and it's so great that you guys do that. And if we could somehow get enough money together to attend the Sylvia Brown Psychic Reading Fest, or whatever it is that she has, I think that we would be able to gather more information on exactly what she does. Unfortunately, tickets to someone like Sylvia Brown are like hundreds of dollars, and we are a small nonprofit. We also don't have the manpower for these types of things. And coordinating with volunteers and with other skeptical organizations, I think will be a great vehicle toward getting to the place where we can be proactive in this way.
Yeah, I mean, every little thing, I mean, just buying walkie-talkies, or just all these things cost money and time and manpower, absolutely, you know. So hopefully we'll be able to raise some money for the NBC. I hope it's
I hope so too.
I do too. So the challenge has grown sort of to a point where people are afraid of it. I mean, we've talked about that. A lot of people are afraid of it. It's become well known. But many believe that the tests are rigged. Or maybe they don't necessarily believe it's rigged, but they like to put out that sort of propaganda saying that it's rigged. I mean, how do you think we get the challenge back on track to address those claims?
I think that if we make it more publicly accessible and post everything that we're doing with a particular claimant, like an entire website devoted to the NBC, something where we post their protocol, their media presence, their academic affidavits, all of their requirements, and if we allow the public to see exactly how we built this protocol, this is how it's not rigged, this is how it was totally fair, this is what the person agreed to in advance of their test, and the only reason that they're saying they have a problem with it now is because they failed. If we're able to do that, I think people will be more likely to take our side.
Yeah, I agree with that. Can you touch on the fact, the idea there are some things we just can't test? Because that's a huge thing.
Yeah, there are actually very few things that we have no way to test. Some people put so many conditions on their test that it becomes impossible and would take weeks to do. But claims of God, for example, are impossible to test because if you have an invisible, sentient being, then they can choose not to be cooperative for the test, and it's never going to illustrate anything. Things like
Demons.
firewalking are real, but people believe that they're paranormal, so we don't test those either. Let's see. Other ones are cloud busting, and there are some that are very difficult, like EVP, for example. That's electronic voice phenomenon. It's when you go into a location.
EVP.
It's like an iPhone. You gotta keep your hand up high.
Here we go.
That's the antenna done that. Yeah, go ahead.
Are you happy?
I am.
It's electronic voice.
Things like EVP,
phenomenon.
electronic voice phenomenon, which is where you go into a haunted location and record the voices of ghosts on a tape recorder, and then play it back later, and ooh, spooky, they're there. But they weren't there when you actually recorded it. You couldn't hear the voices. They only imprinted themselves on the tapes. That would be a very difficult thing to test, because how do you make the ghosts show up, and what limitations do they have? One idea that someone on the forum came up with, and I was amazed by this idea because it never occurred to me, was to put 5 different tape recorders in a haunted location and tell the ghost to only record on one. That would be impressive. And also to not actually pay attention to the content of the tapes, but only whether or not the sound waves moved higher than they did on the other ones. And that was an interesting idea.
Statistically, there are some things that's just not feasible for us to test as well, right? I mean, because of the length of time it would take us to
That's
test it.
true, yes. Some people, for instance, say that over a period of years they can alter the growth of trees. But that is a bit too intense for us to test. We're not a research facility. We are all about demonstrations and single tests. And I mean, with help, we could become that kind of facility, and I hope that someday we do, to where we have a lab that we can put people in. But as of today, that hasn't